I absolutely love Taylor Heinicke. The Washington Commanders have won 4 of their last 5, are 500, and a game out of the playoffs. Taylor Heinicke joined Washington in 2020, and since then, he has a better win percentage than Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert over the span. And since 2018, Taylor Heinicke is 10-9, while all other 10 quarterbacks that have played are a combined 19-37. I like that stat. It is a little cherry-picked, or at least unfair to Alex Smith because he went 11-5 in Washington, but I do get the point. There is something about Taylor Heinicke. The Commanders rally around him, and he makes big plays down the stretch. Not always good plays, but they are plays. He's exciting, and while he's not good most of the time, sometimes he can just turn it up. 2 things can be true. Taylor Heinicke is incredibly fun to watch, but he's not the future quarterback in Washington. Passing, Heinicke has been the worst quarterback in football. He has graded out at 48.2, which is the worst among all 39 QBs that have played at least 20% of dropbacks. It's not like the stat sheet has really said he's been good either. Heinicke has thrown for 840 yards and 5 touchdowns to 4 interceptions while completing 62% of his passes with an adjusted completion percentage of 70.1. Here's what's crazy though. Taylor Heinicke is 3-1. Heinicke makes a lot of plays that he shouldn't, both good and bad. That's really the Taylor Heinicke experience.
He said it!
Sometimes he throws absolute dimes. Third quarter of the Packers win that I was actually at, Heinicke drops back and just unloads a deep ball to Terry McLaurin, and he puts it perfectly where he can snag it, but Jair Alexander can't make a real play on it for a touchdown. Just a beautiful pass. Similar to that on Monday in the third quarter, takes a snap and connects with McLaurin on a deep ball right in the breadbasket for him down the sideline. He can just make throws like that, but he can also make horrible, mind-boggling decisions and just miss really, really bad. In the fourth quarter against the Vikings, up 7, Heinicke dropped back, looked for Logan Thomas, and just sails the ball horribly. Goes way over his head, which is hard to do considering LT is 6'6". Harrison Smith picks it, and Minnesota ends up winning. That did, in essence, cost them the game. Fourth quarter of the Colts game, trailing by 2, another very confusing decision. Now, his arm gets hit while he's throwing the ball, it looks like, which is why it did get picked, but that doesn't excuse the fact that Heinicke is trying to get the ball into Cam Sims, who damn near is in quadruple coverage.
What the fuck was that?
It's those kind of plays that are so frustrating from Heinicke, but he does tend to turn around and pull something out of his ass sometimes, and that's exactly what he did in that game. Game came down to a 4th down with less than 2 minutes left. Commanders needed 2 yards, and Heinicke showed what he does best: make something out of nothing. The pocket collapses, he rolls out and finds Curtis Samuel. About a minute later, he takes a shot and gives Terry McLaurin a chance to haul in a very, very deep ball. Heinicke danced to the pocket and then threw up a 50-50 ball, and Terry did his thing, and ultimately, it won the game for Washington. There definitely is the chance we see Carson Wentz again at some point this year, but I personally don't think that's going to be the case. The Commanders obviously did hope he'd be the guy. That's why they traded for him, but it just didn't work. Wentz started the first 6 games of the season. He went 2-4, completed 62.1% of his passes for about 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. There were 30 quarterbacks that took 50% of dropbacks over the first 6 weeks. Wentz was 21st, and his adjusted completion percentage was 74.3. So he wasn't horrible, but he wasn't great. He doesn't have any more guaranteed money left on his deal. The Commanders aren't going to let him be a $26 million cap hit next year. They'll cut him loose. Taylor Heinicke is in the last season of his deal. That leaves one quarterback currently set to still be on the roster in 2023, Sam Howell. Washington drafted him for a reason, and I do think he could be the reason why Wentz doesn't play again. If the Commanders fall apart and play awful and aren't playing to make the playoffs anymore, there's no point in going back to Wentz. Throw in Howell and at least see if you have anything. If he shows some promise, good. If he doesn't, who cares? He was a 5th round pick. The offense looks so much improved under Taylor Heinicke compared to Carson Wentz, and there's 2 big things I've noticed. Carson Wentz Wentz essentially refused to throw the ball up in a 50-50 situation. And that's a pretty big problem when you have one of the best 50-50 wideouts in the league, Terry McLaurin. In the first 6 weeks of the season, McLaurin had 22 catches. In the last 4 weeks, with Heinicke under center, he has 24. Curtis Samuel has been a solid number 2, and it has been really nice to see him perform after such a rough start in Washington. Jahan Dotson has been injured, but he's already shown some promise as a rookie. I do have to wonder how much more success Wentz would have had with both Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. The game Wentz got injured was really the first time Robinson saw a lot of usage and even started. That Washington two-headed backfield has been a very underrated reason for the recent success, especially against the Eagles on Monday. Washington had possession for over 40 minutes of the game. They just ran the clock and kept the ball out of the hands of Jalen Hurts. The Commanders have won 4 of their last 5 and have 2 pretty easy matchups coming up at the Texans and versus the Falcons. If you can win both of those games, all of a sudden you're 7-5. That being said, Washington still might be last in the NFC East. 3 of their last 5 games of the year are in the division. 2 against the Giants and 1 versus Dallas. The other 2 at San Francisco and versus Cleveland. Those are tough games. The Commanders would be looking solid if they weren't playing in the best division in football. The Eagles are 8-1, Giants 7-2, and Cowboys 6-3. Altogether, the NFC East is 26-11. That's really impressive. If the playoffs were to start today, Washington would not be in because it is a half game behind the 49ers for the 7th wildcard spot. The Commanders definitely could make the playoffs. I just don't think that's going to be the case. The end of the schedule I view as pretty difficult, and unfortunately the rest of the division is better. I really hope I'm wrong though. Either way, it's been nice to enjoy a little winning streak with everything going on. The number one story in Washington isn't that Taylor Heinicke has won 3 of 4 starts this year or anything about what's going on the field. It's that Dan Snyder is selling the team. Man, I have been waiting my entire life to say that. Jay Glazer reported that Dan Snyder was in fact selling the entire franchise, and it is going to go for a ton of money. The asking price is expected to be $7 billion, and the hope is to get it done within the next 6 months. Vegas already has a strong favorite to be the next owner, Jeff Bezos. I'd say he can probably win any bidding war for the team, considering he's worth over $100 billion. He's the 4th wealthiest person in the world. Reports sound like Jay-Z would be part of the group with Bezos to buy the team, but we'll see what happens. Every Washington fan has been dreaming of the day that Dan Snyder sells the team. Now, the next step is to find an elite starting quarterback. He might not be good, but I don't care. I love watching Taylor Heinicke quarterback my team every single week. Taylor Heinicke has become an icon in Washington. He's a fun guy to have on your team. There's this really cold picture taken of him after the game that I just absolutely love. It's literally Taylor Heinicke shushing the Philadelphia crowd. It is so tough. Then there's a video of him on the plane, iced out with all the chains and the glasses just living it up. Meanwhile, it looks like it's a trash can with ice in it and Busch Light. Dude is drinking cheap beer and using a trash can as a cooler. He's just like me, for real. And that's one of the things. Taylor Heinicke is relatable. He's just such a relatable guy and so likable. Every time he wins a game, he gets a pair of Jordans with the opposing team's color, which is awesome. Taylor Heinicke is exciting. He isn't the future in Washington, but I'm gonna enjoy the ride while he's the starter.